Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so feeling good, man. Did everything I need to do, fresh out the shower, all settled where I'm at. Got a chance to talk about the Lakers. And, I was listening to Jason Timpf this morning, as I often try to check in and listen to all the talking heads. And he had a video out right now. He was essentially saying, I'm done with the Lakers. And he went on a long soliloquy essentially saying that our team has a sickness in it that doesn't allow for it to compete properly. And I'm inclined to agree. There's a mental sickness there. I don't want to, disrespect the mental health community that I'm actually a part of. But, I don't want to say all these guys are ill. But there is something very wrong with the mental makeup of this team. And they have a trait within them that I can see. And that trait is a lack of will to compete, as he described in his conversation. And so I've also seen this team overcome some things. I've also seen this team win a championship together, the core that is. And while we don't necessarily have the pieces in place that can help us do that right now, and maybe that's the basis of the sickness, that the guys don't believe they have enough to compete, but if they did, they would be able to win. The guys just aren't here to do that. And mistakes have been made. I don't know that people have been able to air out everything they need to say. This is what we talked about last night in the video I made called The Cloud, which the first half of it I was talking about leverage and transparency, risk of being, what comes of being transparent and the risks that come with it in regards to what you're trying to do as a GM. But the majority of what I was trying to speak to was just identifying that this basketball team has some issues. They don't seem to be able to talk. It appears from the outside looking in that they have a political problem, a politics problem. That the cloud of politics over the team makes it so that guys are probably mentally exhausted, having to say the right things, having to refrain from saying certain things, trying to make sure if it's okay to hold people accountable. And it keeps people from being able to communicate or feeling like they have the right to communicate or what have you. And that can make people check out. Suppression of feelings, suppressions of emotions, suppressions of frustrations, suppression of truths can always create a certain check out when a person has to live like that. And so that's what I think the problem is. There's probably a couple other problems as well this team is going through. But at the end of the day, you just got to take into account that this team has won a championship. This core has won a championship, rather. And that the possibility of them overcoming odds to win, they've already proven to themselves. And that's kind of what I would say if I were JJ Redick. With respect to everybody who wasn't here in that situation, Bron and AD, you can, if any team that can defeat its own mental illness, so to speak, it's a team that made it through the bubble together. You know what you've done. You know what you've accomplished. You know how difficult it was. Do not convince yourself that what you just went through right now was more difficult than what it is you overcome in 2020. Because the reality is you guys did something that no other team could do under circumstances for which most teams would not be able to focus. The whole world was under siege in regards to COVID. And our team found a way to find themselves away from their families, away from all of their devices, away from all the things that made them most comfortable so that they can focus on basketball and ultimately bring home an NBA championship to the Lakers. As far as I can tell, there's nothing you done went through in the last couple of years, or it's nothing that you can't overcome that's any more difficult than what it is you did. And that's what I would tell them. That's what they need to know. That's what they need to be reminded of. That while this does look like something that no team can overcome, so did the COVID era and the passing of Kobe and the pressure that came with winning during that process. That's what I would tell Bron and AD. Like, look, man, maybe the crux of the issue is you guys not believing right now. Maybe the crux is the issue is fatigue and mental fatigue and the overall process of not feeling like you have everything you need. Maybe your players around you may be a little smothered by your presence to a degree, and that might be catering to why they don't feel like they can communicate their frustrations, and maybe that translates to them not performing very well. Maybe our franchise has made some mistakes, and maybe you guys had something to do with some of those mistakes. Maybe bringing in Russell Westbrook was something that you pushed. But like all of this came after we overcame something much more difficult than any of that. And so I'm not saying this team has enough to win a championship, but I am saying they don't have to go out as sad as it's looking right now. And guys just need to remember who the hell they are and what they've been through already. Together. What you've already accomplished. You know, and I think, you know, if you could look yourself in the mirror and communicate with that side of you that accomplished that in 2020, those versions of yourselves will be able to help you through this. Those versions of yourselves will be telling you, snap out of this. Snap out of this weak stuff. Do you know what I'm dealing with in this bubble? Do you know what I have to deal with? This team's looking to win a championship after Kobe Bryant's passing in the middle of the damn season. Like, you know what I'm saying? All that we went through. And this is how we're going to go out? Tell those two back in 2020, this is how you guys want to go out in 2024. They beat the hell out of y'all. Your old selves would want to punch the shit out of the new selves because they wouldn't believe how weak you've gotten and how strong they had to display themselves in that process. And so that's my thing. It's like, yo, Bron and AD, yeah, a lot of the problem may be you guys not believing. A lot of the problem may be you guys not allowing yourself to consider what you've already accomplished. What was already something that most could not have accomplished. People want to say that's the easiest championship ever because you didn't have to take flights. People couldn't even go home. Forget taking flights. They never were home. They were away from their wives, away from their children, away from the things that make them comfortable in their personal world, so that they can be in a bubble while the world is going through hell, not knowing if anybody can even touch anything without getting permanently sick. You know, like, that's what our team won a championship in the presence of, while everybody else was afraid to even come outside. So for me, it's like, if anybody can overcome this mental sickness, it's y'all. If anybody can look in yourself in the mirror and have the mental fortitude to overcome temporary, you know, or whatever this is, circumstances, it's y'all who overcame what no one else could. And that was the NBA championship in 2020. And so for me, I just wanted to get up here and say that. I think that this team has already proven that they've been through a lot. Maybe they're a little fatigued because of all the things that they've been through, including 2020. But I don't think that the way that we've played over the last 10 games, 12 games, is indicative of a team that recognizes what they've already accomplished and just how much it took of them to do so. This is a team that remembers all of the problems it's had over the last 3 years, but maybe doesn't remember how much it took to get through 2020, and how if they tap into that right now, they'll snap out of this funk rather quickly, because this ain't nowhere near as difficult as 2020. Nowhere near it. And so that's what I would tell Bron and AD. You can't make me forget what it is you've appeared to have forgotten about what you guys can do when you decide you want to. You know, I've identified with myself when I was a young child struggling with my mental health, that I often quit things, that I often try to initiate my own failure. I've talked about this in this channel a lot, not recently, but early on. This has been mentioned more than twice, that I had issues with competing because I would rage quit video games. I would, you know, not try, because at least it allowed me to control something, since I felt like I had so little control in circumstances I was not succeeding in. That's how I perceived competition, as a burden that if I gave my all and failed would not be worth it to have given my all. I don't know if that's what they're going through, but it sure looks something like this. It sure looks like this. That's what it looked like they're dealing with. That they don't want to put in the effort. What's the use? They don't want to put in the effort because too tired. I already been through too much. I don't want to put in the effort because last time when I did, I wasn't pleased with how it turned out. All these different things like that is what ultimately the Lakers look like they're dealing with. Some variation or form of that. Maybe massive letdowns. Losing to the same team, being humiliated. What's the use? Let me quit. Losing to the same guy over and over again. What's the use? We can't beat them. Quitting on coaches. You know, someone said something earlier today. It might have been Jason Tenf. I don't remember who it was. I've listened to a lot of people, but they said something along the lines of, once you quit, you allow yourself opportunities to continue to quit. I can relate when I was like that, because I would quit one thing, it was easy to quit on something else. because I gave myself passes. In some areas, I would give myself passes in other areas where otherwise I could do more. Got to overcome that stuff if you're ever going to succeed, if you ever want to look yourself in the mirror and be proud of yourself, if you ever want to get strong enough to be able to deal with tomorrow's problems, you got to be able to overcome today's. And in order to do that, you got to look those problems in the face and give it your all, whether or not it's going to be of use or not, that your effort is its own triumph, that you found it within yourself to put in effort, whether you found yourself strong in the presence of doing so or not. That in and of itself is its own triumph. And a lot of times we trick ourselves out of that when we're so in love with outcomes, but not in love with being pleased with doing all. That's what Kobe used to often preach, to be more pleased with the journey and not necessarily the finish line. That you were able to reach in deep, dig deep, and overcome the every step that took you up the ladder, rather than just being pleased with the idea that you could be at the top of it. And so I think those are the type of principles that need to be reincorporated into this Laker locker room. There do need to be some fundamental roster moves. We've talked about some things that we want to see happen. We've talked about some things we're hoping the Lakers don't do. But I do believe that there are some ingredients that need to be incorporated into this thing in order for them to be as successful as they hope to be, so that their effort can feel like it's worth it. But just the same, they got to get back into the understanding that their effort is not, again, about the finish line, but more so about the pride and your legacy as a competitor. And so that's what's on the line right now for this unit. That's what's on the line right now for some of these players. How do you want to go out? You know, Anthony Davis, I would not take this era, this season for granted. When you go out there and don't put your all in and mope around, you tend to lose sight of the truth, which is this is not a permanent thing. You're not guaranteed next year to come back in the same shape. You're not guaranteed to play 22 seasons like your teammate, LeBron James. You need not forget that you're living a dream that is not going to last forever. You need not forget how hard it took to get you where you're at and how much you needed to accomplish in order to accomplish what you have. A lot of times we get so unhappy with the place we're in that we forget that we need to honor the fact that we got here in the first place. And that's what you owe yourself in your effort. You look around at your teammates, maybe they're not as good as you want them to be. You look at your coach, maybe he's not as accomplished as you want him to be. But that you forget that it's a privilege to be here in the first place. It's something that ultimately betrays you the most, not your circumstances. So that's what I want to say to these guys, man. They got to step their game up as it pertains to remembering who you are, seizing the moment. You may be down by 30, but it's no guarantee you'll never ever get a chance to play the basketball again. I remember when Kobe was going through the case that he had back in the day with the Denver stuff. The game was almost taken from him. He understood right then and there that every game he had going forward was borrowed. That the game was almost taken from him. So whether he was up by 1 million or down by 1 million, that he was on the NBA basketball floor was something he need not take for granted in the moment. Tomorrow could be the rolled ankle that changes your career. Never allows you to play again. You don't know what could be next, so you need to always think of what you have as a privilege and put your effort in and tribute to that. And that goes for everybody on the court, including coaching staff. You're not guaranteed an opportunity to do this ever again. Every single time you go out there, it's not only a privilege, but it's your responsibility to recognize that it is a privilege. It's a responsibility. And so that's what I want to say, man. I think people have lost sight of the truth because of the presence of fatigue in troubles and expectations not met and humiliations repeatedly. It's accumulation of things. People tell them they're not going to do more for them, that they don't believe in them, and they stop believing in themselves. None of that is why you're getting beat by 41 to the Miami Heat. You're getting beat by 41 to the Miami Heat because you're not respecting your old selves and you're not respecting the moment and how fleeting it actually is. and how privileged you actually are to be in the moment you're in as NBA superstars. So that's what I would say to Bron and AD, man. You know, this ain't a situation where you can say, well, let's just go and let's get on to the next game, This might be the last game. And the versions of you that understood that won a championship. The versions of you that betray that get beat by 41. Effort should be non-negotiable. So that's really what I have to say, man. I hope the team comes out and takes some pride. Obviously, we don't expect ourselves to be favored in the next matchup against a very red-hot Hawk team, for which I'm going to do homework on. I've yet to even glance at, but I know they've been playing well. But at the end of the day, man, are guys going to remember they're out there living their dream and that they're not guaranteed another game? That's the question. Are guys going to go out there with a sense of pride, whether the score is high or low, and give a better effort than what it is that everybody's condemning them for? Because you got people hopping off the bandwagon who know what they're talking about. And it's not because they don't believe you have enough. It's because you don't seem to desire to compete. BDL 44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.